In a world where left is up and right is apparently wrong, do souls make sense of it all? Or at least have fun trying? Gear up, friends, for Chicken and the Dog.
Welcome to another episode of Chicken and the Dog. I am the dog, and with me, as always, is the guy that also has a face only his mother can love. The chicken. What up, Doug?
My mother, your mother, America's mothers. I'm good with that.
Yeah. So look, guys, we've been saying for the last 2 or 3 weeks that we're gonna go on camera, and here we are. So if you are listening to this episode and you do not see our beautiful faces, then you need to change your platform. I know definitely YouTube is going to have us. Um, Spotify is going to have us video. I'm not quite sure on the other ones just yet. I'll have more info probably in the next few days of how that's going to look. But check us out.
You could also enjoy the show more than once. So if your normal platform doesn't support video, then go back around
That's right.
and participate in the show again, because chances are you missed something. I'm just that brilliant. You've missed something.
Well,
and now you get to see Chicken and the Dog.
Yeah, and as I was saying, check us out, but not in a weird, awkward way. Well,
family show.
That's right. It's a family show. All right, look, that's enough of that. So on this episode, man, we are now at the episode where we are going to recap the South Carolina Spurs Up Gamecocks. And look, for the most part, I'm gonna speak some, but this is gonna be the chicken show. I'm gonna let him have his moments. I'll knock him down when he gets a little out of hand, because that tends to happen quite a bit. But before I let you loose, I am going to kind of do a quick recap of y'all's season, because it started out a little. So, first game of the season was Old Dominion. You won 23-19. I'm going to repeat that. Old Dominion. You won 23-19. Everybody was kind of like, okay. And hey, look, you and I both had that same conversation. The show we recorded right after this game, we were like, oh my gosh, South Carolina may be a 6-win season. Maybe at best. You said a 7. I said there's no way, but there it was. Now, y'all went to Kentucky next, and you beat the doors off of them, 31-6. Then you lost to LSU in a close game. Now, before we get into that game more depth, you and I were together at that game. We're not at the game. We were together when we were watching that game. We were on a guys' trip. We were in Fripp playing golf. And look, man, you lost 36-33. But Lenore Sellers got hurt in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was a big game changer, because he had some. You guys were winning that game most of the game. I mean, it was really a beautiful thing to watch until the third and fourth quarter, and it just kind of fell apart. Then you came back and you beat Akron 50-7, as you should have. And then we talk about, South Carolina went 9-3 in the regular season, right? And I say this all the time. I've said this many times on the show. In my opinion, South Carolina only truly lost one game. Really got beat. And that's this next game. You played number 12 Ole Miss, and you got thumped 27-3. It was not a pretty game for South Carolina. And then you went to Tuscaloosa and took on Alabama, and you lost that game, but it was 27-25 in Tuscaloosa. So if you give Alabama the 3 points, like they always say, right, you actually beat them 28-27. So that's going to be my theory, and I don't care if you don't like it or if anybody else doesn't like it. I've got the microphone, and you do not. So that was a very close game. It was a good game to watch. Then you took on Oklahoma in Norman, and beat them 35-9. Then you took on the Screaming Aggies. They were number 10 at the time, and you beat them 44-20 at home. Then Vandy came. Then you had to go to Vandy. You had to go to Nashville, and I thought that could be a closer game than what it was. But man, y'all handled business, 28-7. You killed them. Then you played the evil one, and that game was back and forth. It was a crazy, wild game to watch, man. But y'all pulled it out, 34-30 at home. Then you played Wofford. You beat them 56-12. Then you had to play your house divided team with Clemson, and I said y'all were going to beat Clemson that game. You did beat Clemson. It was a wild, crazy game as well, 17-14. And then Curtis shows up.
Curtis.
And you got beat in your bowl game by the Fighting Curtises, Illinois. And it was 21-17. It was not pretty. So all in all, look, 9-3 regular season. You were in the mix. South Carolina was in the conversation to be in the playoffs. If there would have been a 16-team playoffs, which I think will be there in 2 years, this may be the last year that we've got 12 teams, because I think they only contracted for 2. So I mean, I definitely think, and so this year, man, I mean, South Carolina's going to be good. Anyway, but you guys would have been in the playoffs if it had been a 16-team. All in all, fantastic season for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Beamer did a fantastic job. Your turn.
Well done.
Thank you.
A well done recap by someone who is not in love with Garnet and Black.
I am not.
You are not. I will tell you this. Coming into the year, we played golf prior to the season, if you recall. A very hot August Sunday afternoon.
Mm.
And there was a lot with the Gooch. There was a lot of doubt about South Carolina's upcoming season based on the schedule. Most people were counting Kentucky as a loss. At that point, we did not know how bad Vander Griffgroff was going to be.
Brett.
LSU was counted as an automatic L. Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma even was looked at as a loss going into the season. So most people looking at this team coming into the year were thinking, geez, they might only win 4. I was not one of those people. I'm a fan. Went to school at Carolina. Did not graduate. I digress. I did that elsewhere. Anyway, my loyalty is to the Gamecocks. So I saw past what other people looked at through their perceived lens of reality with 4 wins. And I saw a low of 6 and a high point of 8.
Mm.
So we surpassed what I thought we would do going into this season. Now,
they beat your expectations.
They exceeded my expectations. They almost beat my expectations as badly as they beat Kentucky. I look at that LSU game as a pivotal moment in the season.
Mm.
Yes, Carolina was running all over the Tigers in Columbia that Saturday afternoon in the first half. Lenoris Sellers is 9 of 16, 113 yards, 1 pick. Okay, still he's a young quarterback at this point. This is his 3rd game into the season as the starter. But all in all, he's hanging in there. He's also run the ball 10 times for 88 yards and 2 scores in the first half. Lenoris goes down. At halftime, it's 24-16 South Carolina. You come out in the second half, Robbie Ashford is at quarterback. He goes 2 for 4 for 42 yards in the second half. 11 carries for 11 yards and no touchdowns. It has to go on Rocket Sanders for his afternoon, 19 carries, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But Carolina can only muster up 9 points in the entire second half, and that is where LSU wins this ball game. They score 6 in the third. They put 14 more on in the fourth, and they take this thing away. Carolina still had the opportunity to win with a last-second field goal, but we shank it, and there's your day. If Carolina had managed to win that game, if Sellers had managed to stay healthy in that game and not go down, I think that changes the outlook of the entire season. I think that you build the confidence to compete with an Ole Miss. I'm not saying that they beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss was a special team this year.
Oh, my.
But you build the confidence to compete with them. I also think that 27-25 loss at Alabama, the way Alabama played that day, and again, this is a whole lot of what if and hypothetical, but the way Alabama played that day, the confidence that would have been in a South Carolina team that had not lost to LSU, I don't think that game comes down to the wire for an onside kick attempt. I think that Carolina wins that game going away in Tuscaloosa. And so I think that you're looking at a Carolina team at the end of the year, all things equal, everything else equal outside of that LSU change, that's 11-1, not 9-3. Now, reality is what reality is, and we went to a bowl game and lost to the Illini. Ridiculous, but true. I look at this season and 9-3, buddy, I'll take it, because I think that provides solid indication of a program that is on the rise. Go back to the game against Alabama. In previous conversations, you've talked about Alabama from a position of, whoa, is DeBoer going to be able to pick this thing up? Can he rebound next year? As though the storm came through and just burned their house down this past season at 9-3. I think that Alabama is still a good program. I think that there's a changing of the guard taking place. But I think that the University of South Carolina going to Tuscaloosa and going toe-to-toe with the Crimson Tide and hanging with them until the very end and still having a 9-3 year themselves. Historically, Carolina would have a game like that, but they'd still be terrible. They'd go 0-11 back in the days of Lou Holtz, and they'd have some close ones that looked like they belonged on the field, but they were still 0-11. This Carolina team had a really close one with Alabama, and they finished the year at 9-3. I think that that's an indicator going forward. This is a program to be reckoned with.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think Carolina is on the rise. They really are. A 9-3 season, regular season, was great. I mean, it was above expectations, I think, for most Carolina Gamecock fans, if not all Carolina. And look, I don't think you can find very many SEC fans that would think that would have thought that Carolina would have went 9-3 in 2024. And look, you talk about these games, you talk about Alabama, and part of the argument, and we had them on the show, we had this on the show when we were talking about those three teams that were outside looking in, who had a better resume and so forth and so on. Yes, Alabama beat Carolina, but Alabama lost to Vandy. Y'all beat. Y'all smoked. They lost to Oklahoma. You destroyed. But Alabama beat you. Alabama beat Georgia. So, I mean, this last season as a whole for the SEC was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about Lane Kiffin, my guy.
How you doing?
But their season was crazy. Ole Miss season, in some of their games, they looked like no one can beat them. Mm-hmm. That Jackson Dart and that offense was fantastic, but the defense was just as good in some of those games. There's some of those games, man. I don't think Ohio State could have beat them. But then there were some games where they fell apart. I mean, they lost to Florida, for crying out loud, right? In the swamp, we talked about that, but still. So I don't see, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think that changes the craziness in the SEC changes in 2025. I don't. I think you're going to see the same things.
I agree. And there's been talk, right? Downplay talk. People that don't want to give Lenora Sellers the credit that I believe wholeheartedly he deserves. And not to take anything away from DJ Lagway. He's getting a lot of the attention during this offseason of, he's going to be a Heisman candidate. And Lenoris is being downplayed. Lenora Sellers threw for 2,534 yards this past year. Lenora Sellers ran the ball for 674 yards this past season. This kid's got talent. You talked about the Clemson game. I'm going to tell you right now, Lenora Sellers won the Clemson game for the South Carolina Gamecocks. This kid knows what he's doing out there. He's going to bring amazing results for the Gamecocks. You talked about the Ole Miss matchup and how there were weekends that they looked like they could beat anybody. Carolina's bright spot that everybody knew about this past season was the defense, right? You can't overlook that. Look at what they did to Oklahoma.
Oh, my.
Ole Miss found a way to top the South Carolina defense and at the same time hold Lenora Sellers. Now, granted, that was the game where Lenoris was coming back off of that ankle injury that he had hurt in LSU playing against the Tigers. He took the week off against Akron. So this is his first game back. But Ole Miss is more than prepared for both sides of the football from the South Carolina Gamecocks that week. And yes, we got beat. 27-3 is a good old beating. But Carolina has had far worse. Carolina this past year inflicted far worse on opponents. So I look at that and say, we took our lumps in that game, but it could have been a lot uglier because of who I also agree Ole Miss was this past year.
Yeah, you mentioned it. You really was touching on. I was hoping you were going to take it one more step further when you were talking about Lenora Sellers. Okay, yes, DJ Lagway is getting a lot of attention, which I think I think he deserves some attention, no doubt. But in a lot of these games last year, Lenora Sellers, as we like to say all the time, put his team on his back and won those games, man. And he's young. Now, DJ Lagway is young too, so I give him both that.
Right.
But I think, and I'm going to say it, so Mr. Floby, please don't get mad at the dog. But Beamer's a better coach than Napier, in my opinion. And I think Napier, if you're going to look at both of them in that same lens, it's about having this young, both of them got these young second-year stud quarterbacks, right? Who's going to do better with those stud quarterbacks? I think Beamer does better with Sellers, and Sellers has a better year this year than DJ does. I think there's no – see, here's another big difference too. There's no pressure on Shane Beamer about his job at South Carolina in 2025. But think about the pressure that is on Billy Napier in 2025 when it comes to his job. And I think that plays with people's psyche, man. I don't think it's good. And so I think Beamer goes in there in 2025 with this Lenora Sellers. And Lenora Sellers, I wrote it down here, Lenora Sellers is a leader. He leads his team. That's where I was hoping you were going with that. That is the difference maker between, I think, Sellers and DJ Lagway is. I think Sellers is a better leader of his team. He learned it all last year, and he comes out better than DJ Lagway does and has a phenomenal year. I will say My gut tells me that Carolina has a really legitimate shot at making the playoffs in 2025.
I like to agree with that, but I don't want to look completely through my beautiful chicken lenses. Your chicken scratch moment brought to you by OTC Kennels, Off the Chain Kennels, OTC on Instagram and Facebook. Going into this next season, we talked about Lagway's getting a lot of the attention. And you just kind of hinted at the pressure that's on Captain Floby and, of course, the Florida program. The difference between leadership and I don't want to knock Lagway, but maybe something that's not as easily seen in him. And maybe just didn't have the opportunity. He was a true freshman last year. He had a lot of work to do just to keep them in some of those games and to help them win some of those games. Did your chicken scratch moment is this. Heisman candidacy aside, which one is more likely to stay at their respective program or transfer out? Lenora Sellers or DJ Lagway? I think it's Lagway. I think if Lenora Sellers leaves the University of South Carolina after this next season, it's because he's done all that he can do at this level and he's going to the big show.
Yeah, I as you were starting the chicken scratch, I had no idea where you were going with that. I didn't. So, but I wrote down as I like to take notes to the show when an idea pops in my head because I'm old and I'll forget it if I don't write it down. And what I just wrote down was this: Lenora Sellers is Lenora Sellers a bigger Gamecock than DJ Lagway is a Gator?
Oh, yes.
And I say absolutely. And I think that in the 2025 season is the biggest difference between the two. I do. I think he is bought in the program. He is a Gator. He's a Gamecock. Sorry.
Wow.
I know that shifted.
Things changed quickly there.
Yeah. I think he's a Gamecock in his heart, in his mind, and he wants to be a Gamecock. He wants to end as a Gamecock, kind of like one of my favorite Gamecocks, Connor Shaw. That dude loved your program. Marcus Lattimore loved your program. He could have went to any other SEC school and played on a bigger stage, and potentially, furthered his NFL career or whatever. But he chose to stay at Carolina. Marcus Lattimore was a phenomenal running back, and he's a great human being. From everything I've read about him, he does a lot of good stuff for a lot of people. So I think Lenora Sellers is that same person.
Yeah, and I think that he's learned from those before him. Just looking and transitioning a little bit here into what has left the University of South Carolina football program. I was looking up earlier today, a total of, I believe, 26. Our producers got a list of 17. So maybe what I was bringing up was wrong, of players that left, that entered the transfer portal to leave the program. And as a fan, I look at these names and I'm thinking, wow, yeah, I recognize that name. Mo Kaba was a starting linebacker for Carolina 2 years ago when he got hurt. Came back this past season and he just couldn't get onto the field. We were so deep at talent. It wasn't that Mo didn't do the work that he needed to do. We were just loaded on defense. Some other names, Robbie Ashford obviously took over in that LSU game, and then he led us to victory against Akron. Now it's Akron, right? But he left and is going to Wake Forest. Some big names: Elijah Caldwell, wide receiver. DeBron Gatling is going to Georgia Tech from the wide receiver position. So some big names that are leaving the program through the portal. But that's not where we get hit the hardest. Where we get hit the hardest is the talent that's leaving this defense, leaving this program, and going to the NFL, the National Football League. Nick Imamore had a year of eligibility left and decided, I think being a first round pick is probably a better deal. So he's gone, and he lit up the NFL world at the combines. I mean, he shocked everybody. Of course, the chicken knew what he could do. Not only did Imamori come from my favorite collegiate program, we come from the same hometown. So TJ Sanders, projected to be a second or a third round pick. Kyle Kennard, what a ridiculous year that guy had at the edge rush position.
Sure.
Right? Demetrius Knight, he had an outstanding season this past year. O'Donnell Fortune, another guy that turned some heads during the combine. Joshua Simon at tight end this past year was amazing. Just get the ball somewhere near him, Lenoris, and Simon's going to catch it. And he did. Rocket Sanders, a lot of people had discounted because he'd had some injuries, right? He's projected to go anywhere from the 3rd to the 5th round, that kind of mid-tier, mid-draft running back pick that could really be impactful on the right NFL team. So there's a lot of leaders that have left this program, but you got to recognize this. Lenoris got to work with these guys this past year. Lenoris got to learn from these guys the past 2 years, because remember, he's a redshirt freshman this past season. That's going to carry forward, not only with Lenoris, but also with guys like Oscar Attaway, right? Nick Harbor. These guys that have been just waiting on that opportunity to break for them and be the next great group of Gamecocks. I think we're going to see that this next season.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. And, my question is to you, or, and maybe you don't know this. I'm sure our young producer could probably find this, man, but this might actually be one of the best classes from South Carolina going into the NFL in quite some time. I mean, there's quite a few very talented players that's leaving South Carolina going to go to the big show, man. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, you got programs like Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State. Those programs every year lose, 5 to 8 players to 10 players that go in the draft, right? I mean, I think Georgia 3 years ago they set a record with like 16 or 17 players made it to the fucking draft, unheard of, right? But programs like the Georgia and and the Ohio States and the Alabamas, I mean, they're used to being picked apart every year to go into the draft. South Carolina lost y'all losing quite a few people to the draft this year. And I mean, that's a good thing. That's a positive thing for Shane Beamer.
Some of those guys that went in the Georgia you're talking about that went in the draft, I think that was early release, though. Some of those guys were in Athens Clarke County Jail. And the NFL were like, look, we'll take them. Just don't send them back on campus.
Look, man, all we do, they like the speed. Bryson, you're in Athens, man. I don't know what you need to do, man, but you need to figure out a way to slow these guys down.
Yeah, I'm going to go out there on the interstate and wave signs or something. I need to tell them to show up.
You need to be, because they don't want to take an Uber because they got money through NIL, so they've got some nice cars. Carson Beck, although his is somewhere in the state of Florida, he has no idea where. But anyway, they got nice cars now. There needs to be some type of new service similar to Uber, but you just go and drive their car. So, hey man, Bryson,
I'll sign up.
There you go. Look, I've got a party I need to go to. I got to get to class, whatever it is, and I want to take the Ferrari. All you got to do is show up at the dorm on time. Get the keys. All right, dude, hop in. They ride shotgun in their sweet ride. Off you go.
I'll take 1% of NIL.
There you go. 1%. That'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to drive the car and you don't have to carry the insurance. That's the big deal.
It's a great deal.
But I was sitting there thinking, I think Georgia and South and all the big boys, that are used to being picked apart, right? They, I think it has always helped them with their recruiting. Let's go to Ohio State. Let's go to a Georgia. Let's go to an Alabama, because you know what, I'm going to get looked at better. You know, I'm going to have an opportunity to go to the next show. With Beamer producing these players going into the NFL is going to help him when it comes to, you know, with recruiting. Of course, NIL money, it plays a big part of that too. And I'm sure there's some deep pockets in Carolina. And look, Carolina keeps producing and doing what they're supposed to be doing. You're going to have deeper pockets, invest more money into Carolina.
He's brought a completely different atmosphere than what we've seen here in a long time. I know that you like to reference the Spurrier era. I'm going to go back. I won't go so far back as Brad Knott, but I'll go back to Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz, the era that he brought to Carolina was almost, and I hate to knock my own school, but it was almost a re-education era. It was, okay, let's bring this program back to basics. Let's remember what this game is all about. Let's remember how to recruit the right players and start trying to remember how to win. And that's what Lou Holtz started doing here. And he got it to a point and then handed it off to Steve Spurrier. The Steve Spurrier era was Steve Spurrier. It was fantastic. A lot of amazing seasons, a lot of big-time wins. I think for a while there, Georgia didn't like playing us. Spurrier loved playing Georgia. He's quoted as saying he liked playing them early in the year because most of their guys were suspended anyway. So you had that fun-loving nature, fun-loving winning nature of a program. There were still teams that we couldn't get over the top of. We still had a hard time with Florida. We'd go back and forth with them. We could not figure out how to beat the Screaming Aggies. But you could tell that there were some positive things happening. And then came along the chump. And I don't know that he knows what exactly he was trying to build here. I don't think he knew when he was trying to build it at Florida prior to his experience here, but the Muschamp era set Carolina back.
I agree.
What Beamer is doing here is not only getting us back to a level that's not equal, but it's comparable to Spurrier from a success standpoint. We're building this. Spurrier didn't come in and start going 10-3 immediately. It took him a while. What Beamer is doing is he's building this program. He's building the respect for his staff among his players in this program. He's building the respect among the fans and the boosters for what he's doing in this program, that I completely agree with you. If he can continue to produce these types of seasons, if he can continue to produce the character in these young men, if he can continue to produce the quality of player that is going to go to the next level, man, the SEC is not the limit, my friend. The playoffs are in that stratosphere. The limit, dare I say, could be a trophy.
Wow. Whoa, 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 whoa. Man.
Maybe a bowl game.
Yeah, maybe a bowl game. There we go. Maybe a New Year's Six. No, but I will tell you, my fine feathered friend, I think and I know that you're the chicken scratch guy. But I have...
Nobody wants to see dog scratch. That's different.
We scratch things that probably shouldn't be scratched.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll leave that. It's a clean show. Leave that one alone. But
it was.
It was. So, but here's the thing, though. I've got a chicken scratch moment for you, brought to you by OTC Kennels. OTC Kennels on Facebook and Instagram. Did I do that right?
You did.
I make it, Brad?
And now it's officially a 2-for-1.
Yeah, there you go. So, but I have a chicken scratch moment for you. 2 years from now, are you going to say Beamer is a better coach than Spurrier? Who's going to be the better coach? Who's going to have the more success at Carolina? I have my answer. I know what I think. I can tell you right now, Shane Beamer will go down and be a better coach for South Carolina Gamecocks than Steve Spurrier was. And I do believe that he has the opportunity down the road to bring home a trophy. I do believe that.
I will answer your question on
With a question?
several levels.
Oh.
I'm going to need you to hold on because this may blow your hair back. Number one, I do believe that Beamer has the opportunity, certainly. Now, it's all going to come down to wins and losses and like we talked about, putting players in the league. Spurrier did that. Beamer's got the opportunity to do that. I think Beamer has, by his own hand, a stronger opportunity than Spurrier did. Spurrier came into Carolina and started doing some great things. Spurrier voiced the ultimate reality. He voiced it a little early, a couple years early, that he was ready to move on and retire. And the athletic director at the time, no, please stay. Give us another year or two, whatever. So Spurrier signed on. Well, when that happened, that was the beginning of the end. When Spurrier was he was ready to be gone, he stayed because I think he had grown to love the school. But it was the beginning of the end. So there was a time stamp on the effectiveness of a true Spurrier program, and it ended before the Spurrier program ended. I think Beamer is exactly where he wants to be. I think that this is the destination dream job for him. I don't think he's looking on the horizon to other big name programs. He wants Carolina to be a big name program, and he wants to be the guy to take it there. So yes, I completely agree. I think in a few years, we'll have the opportunity to look back and say that Beamer is the better coach. The second way I'm going to answer that question, I believe, because I've heard Spurrier talk about Beamer, I believe that if you asked the old ball coach that same question, his answer would be just like mine. And I think he's rooting for Shane to do exactly that at South Carolina and be the defining coach in South Carolina football history.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I really do. And part of that is, I'm not going to say overall is Beamer a better coach than Steve Spurrier was. I'm not going to say that. But will he be a better coach for Carolina? Yes, because I think you hit the nail on the head, man, when you said Spurrier came into Carolina at the tail end of his career. It was his final mission. I'm going to do this. You know, if he came in at the age that Beamer came in, oh my. I mean, Carolina could have been, I mean, they really would have had something special there. So I think it's fair to say that Spurrier's probably a better coach, or Spurrier, I don't know if Beamer will be a better overall coach than Steve Spurrier. Maybe he will but as far as Carolina, yeah, I think Beamer would do a better job. Now, we've talked about Beamer. We've talked about, who he's got going into the portal in the NFL. We talked a lot about Lenore Sellers, but we talked a little bit about what I think was a very, very strong attribute. Did I say that right?
It depends on what your next sentence is, but it sounds like it so far.
All right.
You're off to a good start.
Thanks. Of what Carolina's season, why it was as good as it was. And that is their defense. I want you to talk to me about their defense this season, because although their offense was good, I'm not going to say it was great, but I'm going to say it was good. Their defense was better than their offense this year. It was electric. They may have had the best defense in college football. So I want you to talk about the defense.
The defense was something to witness, that there just really aren't a whole lot of appreciative words that express the feeling of a Gamecock fan. And what I mean by that is this. Going into the year, you have all these interviews after fall practice sessions, and players are saying this and coaches are saying that. And the overall theme that you would hear from these defensive players was, we've got the opportunity to do something historic. Now, that type of soundbite as a Gamecock fan is a scary one, because usually that's followed by a season of, oh dear God, what are they doing out there?
Or there's always next year.
Wait till next year.
Yeah.
If only the Girl Scout cookies had arrived on time, then the kicker wouldn't have been hungry and he would have made that field goal. It's always something silly like that when that type of a comment comes out. We got the opportunity to do something historic. By God, they did. I mean, the defensive pass rush was ridiculous up front. TJ Sanders, Demetrius Knight, Kyle Kennard. You had a defensive backfield that was in a lot of ways redefined. The year prior, Nick Imamori, we were so thin in our defensive secondary. Year prior, Nick Imamori was playing corner. He's a safety by trade. And they had him playing cornerback, and it wasn't a good look. I mean, Nick's got all kind of raw talent and ability, don't get me wrong, but his position is a safety. They moved him back to safety this year, and we were picking balls off like they were ours for the taking. O'Donnell Fortune had a great year. Debo at the linebacker position. Oh my gosh, talk about a headhunter. He's ready to hurt people. And he loves the Lord Jesus Christ, but it looked like he was a mass murderer on the gridiron. So just the defense was just such a wonderful, beautiful thing to behold, because they lived up to it. They were something historic this past season. I only hope that with the guys that they've been able to bring in, the true freshman recruits, the transfer portal acquisitions, that they're able to do that and then some in 2025.
Yeah, man. And look, remember who won the defensive dog of the year?
Mr. Kyle Kennard.
That's right.
You have to call him Mr. now. He's now a professional and deserves our respect.
I guess. Maybe. All right, look. So, all in all, Carolina season, man, you have to be happy to be a Carolina Gamecock, I'm sure. It was a good year to be a Gamecock. There's no doubt about that. Look, 9-4. I'll even just say 9-3 because it sounds better. I'm not going to, look, good job, Curtis. You deserve it. You were the better team that showed up that day. You won. But you played that game in a regular season 10 more times, and Carolina wins 8 of them, no doubt. But all in all, great season for Carolina. But before we go, you got anything else you want to wrap up for Carolina? Because I got one more thing I want to talk about.
I could go on for days, so I'll just stop and let you take over.
I really thought they were going to get into a fight on the field, him and Illinois' coach.
Oh, Bielema.
Y'all remember that?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
That was a great game.
I was rooting for that.
Me too. I was ready.
Beamer would have took that fat guy.
Oh, in a heartbeat. He's quick and he's feisty.
Now, let's don't pick on fat dudes because, well.
I believe that Bielema puts the pH in fat.
Yes, I think so.
And I mean that from a poor pH balance. I'm sure that his odorific nature is quite evident on the sidelines. When you're that big, let me break off for just a second because I've got the opportunity to make fun of Coach Bielema. When you're that big, maybe don't wear, the fleece pullover with it zipped up to your throat 24/7. How about a t-shirt, dude? Like air it out, bro. You're playing a bowl game in Florida and you're dressed up like you're somewhere in Alaska. Not a good idea.
Probably not a good smell either.
This is exactly what I'm saying. That's probably what had Shane so fired up. He's like, look, if you would just use some Old Spice.
Yeah, please smell better. All right, so we'll digress on that one. There was some news that came out the other day. I want to talk about it for a moment. Is the NCAA has now filed a suit to try to stop Pavia, Ernie,
Hibbert,
from playing this year. Now, you and I had this conversation. We talked about this. So I'm going to give you my take on it really quick, and I'm sure you're going to give your take. And we're a little different in some ways. I didn't agree with him being able to play again. I don't. You know, you basically he's saying you shouldn't count my 2 years in JUCO, so I should have time to play. I want to make some more money for Vanderbilt and win some more games. A Tennessee judge granted it
in Nashville.
Yeah, big shock, right? So I didn't agree with it when it happened, but I also don't agree with waiting as long as they have waited, because this happened in December, I believe, the end of December. I don't think it happened in January, February. I know it didn't happen that late. I think it was in December. So what I don't agree with the NCAA waiting until the end of March, spring practice is underway, and saying, yeah, hold my beer, we may stop that. I don't agree with that. They should have filed, and I know your argument is, well, they had to get their lawyers do this, blah, blah, blah. They knew they were going to do this, or at least they should have known they were going to do this, and this should have been filed back in January. It would have gave at least the Commodores and Clark some time, for people that have listened to the show all last season, you would understand why said Clark in all capitals. But anyway, you would understand. I lost my train of thought real quick. Anyway, they should have filed this back in January at the latest, right? And gave the program enough time to figure out what they're going to. Because right now, I'm not saying they're putting all their eggs in the basket of Pavia, but that's who they're thinking is their guy. And now that might change, or now their practice and everything is going to be changing, because now they don't know if it is or not. So before I let you loose on this and let you give you your opinion on this, right now at spring practice at Carolina, who's taking the majority of the snaps? Who's doing first team offense under center right now? It's Lenora Sellers. It's because
I thought you were going to say Eugene Bartholomew Jones.
Yes, him too.
Right.
So it's Lenora Sellers, because that's who they know their guy is, right? Gunnar Stockton is doing the same at Georgia, because that's who Georgia believes their guy is.
Carson Beck at Miami.
Yes.
When he can find his car.
And his girlfriend.
Or girlfriends.
You knew who is not taking
some Latinos
first rep steps? Brett.
That's because he retired.
That's right. He retired.
I'm sure it was voluntary.
Yeah. Vander Griffgroff.
That's right.
Anyway, so what is your take on the whole Pavia thing and the NCAA and what they're doing?
Hey, real quick, November 8th was when the attorney filed it, and December 18th was when he was granted another year.
So I knew it was in December, and it just got correct. It just happened. The NCAA just filed the thing last week.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Bryson, I'm assuming that you got this up on your screen and you're looking at it. What happened was the court granted an injunction saying that until this got figured out, that the NCAA could not prevent him from playing. So they didn't make an absolute ruling, as I understood it at the time. Now, that's been a few months ago. They didn't make a final ruling on the case. They just said, look, while this is still being tried and figured out in the court system, an active case, you can't keep him off the field.
Yeah, it
so
was
basically you got to figure it out before you figure it out.
It's a preliminary injunction for it. Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. Yep.
Now, before your head explodes, I didn't like and still don't like the approach that Pavia's legal representation took to get here, because the angle that they took in all this went towards the easy button, if you will, against the NCAA. And please don't make any mistake, I'm not necessarily a fan of the NCAA. But the angle that they took was the antitrust, which is what has been their weak point, which brought about NIL. It brought about all the transfer portal changes. Is antitrust. Antitrust, you're taking away these kids' rights to earn a living. That's where all this stems. And so this is just trying to piggyback on the momentum that antitrust suits have had against the NCAA. So I don't like that angle. But this is all the legal system. This is all the litigious society. Litigious, that means people that like to file lawsuits.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, it wasn't just for you. I'm sure there are a lot of kids out there that are like, what is that big word? But anyway, this is just where we are in this in college football now. We brought it in. We brought it in when we brought in NIL. We brought it in when we brought transfer portal. We brought it in when we brought in the COVID year. We started changing all the rules. Why? For money. And so when money gets involved in all this, now you're going to have lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have some that make sense, and they're going to have a lot more that don't. So do I think that a kid should be penalized financially for having to go play JUCO for a couple of years? I mean, I don't know. That it used to be you got 5 to play 4. That fell off the rails with COVID. If they're going to keep this super senior thing going, okay, fine. But you've got to make some defined rules.
Correct.
And I know the last time we talked about this, I painted Pavia as the villain. He's got a legal team that's telling him what to do and what to say and what they should file for.
He's just trying to make a living.
The kid's just trying to make some money. He probably knows that his life is going to max out working at a Ford dealership outside of Nashville. He's not going to the NFL. So he's just trying to get what he can while he can. You can't fault him for that.
No.
That's my answer.
So y'all are kind of split on the issue then, huh? So, you might swing towards Pavia's way a little bit with not taking the eligibility away, where as Dawg, you're more of a JUCO counts as 2 of his years.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, that's the way I was at the beginning, for sure. But now I don't think they should mess with them. Now I think they should have filed something a long time ago and had this thing worked out. I think that it's wrong against the Commodores,
right,
and even Pavia at this point to wait this long.
I don't think that anybody was surprised by this. I mean, you know how this thing works with lawyers, and just because something got filed on a specific date doesn't mean that these 2 law offices weren't going back and forth at each other long prior. We're going to appeal this and we're going to do that. I mean, they've been going back and forth in conjunction. I'm sure that the Commodores have not at all been surprised by this ongoing legal battle. It's just been that question of, all right, well, they say they're going to do this. When is it actually going to hit? And if it hits at this time, how does that affect us? Can that affect us? Because listen, right now, Pavia still has the ability to play. That injunction still stands right now. So right nothing's really changed for him.
No, but I would like it if old Clark Lee would come on the show and give us his take on it and let us know. I mean, was he expecting this to happen? You know, that would be a great episode if he wants to come on the show. And
we can have him and Matlock.
Yes. Bryson's like, who's Matlock?
No, there's a new Matlock out now.
I like to laugh at his laugh. It's funny.
So anyway, look, man, I could keep going on about stuff like that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna say one more thing before we go.
Makes
And
sense.
I probably should. I was thinking about.
Doesn't he always?
I was thinking about saving this until the Alabama show and the recap, but I'll forget. So
I thought you
let's
took
just go
notes
now.
during the show.
I do, but those notes will be long gone by then. So I'll just say this real quick, and maybe this is something that this could be a Twitter poll that we can recap on the Alabama show. You ready?
I am.
I was in Alabama Monday night, okay, and Tuesday. And I was sitting at my hotel at the hotel bar. I was enjoying a steak dinner and a drink, and I was talking to the bartender, and he was a Alabama guy. And I was in Montgomery, Alabama. So I was in Auburn country, but I had to ask him, you from Auburn or you from Alabama? Because that's what everybody asks everybody there. And he said he's an Alabama guy. Big time. I said, cool, man. And I told him about the show, and he pulled it up, and he started listening to our Aggie recap show right then. And I thought that was pretty cool. But I asked him the question, does he think DeBoer is the future? Is he happy with DeBoer or not? And he was not happy and does not think he'll be a future of the Crimson Tide very much longer. And it could even be gone as early as maybe this season.
Are you getting to your Twitter poll question?
Yeah. The question is,
it was a lovely story.
Well, thank you. I thought it was great. I was a little early.
Well,
there's that story of my life. And I'll leave that one alone too.
Yeah, good one.
So, will DeBoer the future of the Crimson Tide? Is he the future?
This is a simple yes or no.
A simple
poll.
yes or no.
Okay.
That's it. Well, I mean, I can't make it too difficult for our listeners.
I think that on X, Twitter X, whatever it is, you have the option for 4 answers, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I would, I think yes or no is probably solid though.
See? Yes or no.
Do you want to sit there? So I'm going to tweak your poll.
Tweak it away. I mean, this is
what I do.
Oh, for sure.
So what if instead of is he the answer, yay or nay, we say going into the 2025 season, does DeBoer A, improve on the 9-3 regular season record? Does DeBoer B, lead Alabama to an SEC title? Does DeBoer C, lead Alabama to a championship run? Or does DeBoer D, regress at Alabama and the tide begins to fall?
Well, I don't disagree with you.
I like options.
Other than I'm going to disagree with you. I think it should be simple as 3. Does he stay the same at 9-3? Does he improve, or does he get worse than 9-3?
Is it because as a dog you just can't handle a lot of choices? You get lost, start chasing your tail.
I don't know what to do with my hands. So, peck
away, my friends, peck away.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna Bryson, it's up to you, buddy. You're the producer.
All right, sounds good.
You figure it out. But I think we should do a poll on Twitter, and let's find out, and we'll recap that when we do the Alabama recap show. We'll let you know what that poll is.
I will put a poll.
To call it Twitter.
Yeah,
is it Twitter?
Is it Twitter?
X?
No one's gonna come sue us if you call it Twitter.
No, is it X?
I think
it's
Elon's
X
busy
now,
doing some other stuff right now. Don't worry about what we call his platform.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, so I'll put a poll on everything that can get a poll.
Oh, that's sweet.
So we'll have a little bit more, maybe some more votes.
Yeah.
No,
Let's
find out.
Instagram
stories. If you are listening to this, go check our Instagram story right now, and the poll will be there. That's probably the quickest way.
Yes. There we go. Well, look, man, I don't. I'm done, man. If you got anything else,
I'm all crowed out.
Yeah. So look, Bryson, you got anything?
Sure. Nick Harper is going to be an absolute dog. That's all I got to say. He's my favorite player on the Gamecocks. He's going to be amazing.
Stud. And he did not pay attention to track and field this spring. He solely focused on football.
That's the biggest news, and I know we're going to get a lot more into that during the outlook side of things here in the next couple of weeks, but I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing some Nick Harper next year. I think he could be an NFL guy easily.
Look, I'm going to just tease you just one more second before we get off the show. Look forward to a show being recorded next week and put on talking about the Masters golf tournament. The Chicken and I will be at the tournament on Wednesday for the par 3 contest. We're going to get to take a chance and, look at how these guys are looking and give us our take on who we think has a shot at winning it all. So, look, man, I got nothing else. Love you. Deuces.
Bye.